Hello and welcome to Chelsea. I have to say, Joe, to be back here in spring feels right. It feels good, doesn't it? First time for 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah.
Crazy, isn't it? And it's a packed one this year, isn't it? With so much to look forward to tonight and across the week at the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset.
And what an opening day it's been.
I love everything about Chelsea. I go around all the gardens, get loads of ideas. By the time I leave, I've got a suitcase.
Flowers, there's a couple of them here, which is great. You're into flowers.
Every year that I come, I'm more and more inspired.
It's the creativity that I love. These people are artists and what they do, you know, plants are their palette.
This is my first time at the Chelsea Flower Show. Now I'm here, I don't really understand why I've not been before.
You can go around anywhere and see anything that you want to. There's something for everybody.
I'm very glad to be here. Wish I'd have brought more money and a lot more bags.
Well, stepping away from the fun and the games, let's visit one of the 13 large show gardens that are here this year. And this one is the RNLI garden, designed by Chris Bidgell.
Yes, it's the first of one we'll be looking at together this week, isn't it, Monty?
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, imagine would be an RNLI garden, you think seaside, boats, water, sand, beach.
None of that.
None of that at all.
No.
I mean, it's a garden.
And I like it for that. It's a garden for the RNLI. It's not trying to tell the story in a sort of a mime that the garden can do. Well, sometimes you get gardens that have so loaded with story that the garden almost gets forgotten. And this is a garden.
Yeah, and it's celebrating the history of the RNLI, isn't it? And also all the people that are involved
And
in
I have to say that this view that we've got, that we're privileged to have, because the public can't come on here, it's wonderful. I think this is the best view of the garden.
It's gorgeous. I mean, the paving, the way it meanders through, and the planting cuts in either side, and these Pinus mugo, these little dwarf pines, add the rhythm, don't they? And the informality. They're really lovely.
I have to say that this building, standing here, smells delicious.
It's quite the touchy-feely, isn't it?
It feels and smells good, I can tell you. The dwarf pines are really nice, and I love them.
Yeah.
The big pines look to me as though they're a little bit sad. They're slightly suffering. They're not bursting with vitality.
Yeah, well, we've had some really hot weather here, and they need a lot of water. I think a little bit stressed out. A little bit stressed.
But all the rest of the planting couldn't look better. I mean, it looks healthy, it's vibrant, it's big, it's lush.
The plant quality is absolutely spot on. Yeah. And what's interesting is this paving is perfectly level throughout the site, and all the heights and the sort of movement comes from the planting itself here.
Yeah. I mean, the paving, it has to be said, it has significance. Every one of these sort of brick-sized slabs represents a life lost by the RNLI, which is a very sobering thought because there are an awful lot of slabs.
Yeah, it's a beautiful texture and it makes a lovely meandering path, though.
The other thing about the planting, which I like, is he's used plants that are very familiar. I mean, I have most of these plants in my garden.
Yeah, me too.
And yet, so therefore they're accessible, they're not obscure, you can relate to them directly. Yeah. Yet, boy, do they work. Yeah. I mean, he makes his plants perform they are their very best selves, aren't they?
They are, totally. Yeah. I mean, I think he wants it to be an accessible garden, a garden that sort of represents, the members of the RNLI rather than something that's unattainable, unachievable. And you could take a section of this and literally, it would work perfectly at home. And some of the plants, I mean, like the euphorbias here and that melianthus, they came in huge pots. He's been growing them for years for this show, getting ready.
Well, the only criticism, I like the tall Bulgarian pots. I probably would like more. I'm not convinced about these huge terracotta pots. I don't think they need them. There's nothing wrong with the pots. Yeah. I just don't think the garden needs them.
Yeah, they're sort of oversized, aren't they? Maybe if they're nestled down in the planting, it'll... But have you seen there's a rock in that tree? The tree's been growing around this rock for years. Beautiful. And a stonemason came and carved the motif on site here. It's absolutely
that's a lovely little touch. But I would say this garden is really about the planting.
Yes.
You know, it's a plantsman at the top of his game with plants looking at their very best.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Well, we can't wait to have a proper look at the rest of the gardens. Meanwhile, Arit Anderson has been exploring an eye-catching show garden that's sure to get people talking.
One of the big themes this year at Chelsea is the importance of green outdoor spaces, how they bring us all together and have a positive impact on our physical and mental well-being. And this garden has certainly embraced that idea. This is St Mungo's Putting Down Roots garden, and I love already how they've created this communal seating area to bring people together so they can socialise. Plants are a joy in any garden, and no different here. Just look at the delicate colour palette and how the soft textures really bounce in the light. But St Mungo's help homeless people through horticulture to socially interact again. Many of the plants in this garden have been grown by those people. If you nurture a plant, you nurture yourself. There's vulnerability in being homeless, and it takes time to be around people again. So I really like this part of the design where it really accounts for that. Secluded, more intimate seating area rather than the bigger space in the middle of the garden. The garden is on one level, so that means that it's accessible to everyone. All can come and enjoy this space. But at the heart of the design is sustainability. All of the materials have been reclaimed and recycled, even from previous Chelseas. And as I look down, this I recognise from my own Chelsea garden 2021. Only a few of us get to enjoy this garden here at Chelsea, but its permanent home is going to be in South London, where it can be enjoyed by many people for many years to come.
Being back at Chelsea in May means catching those ornamental plants that burst into colour for just a few weeks at this time of year. Francis Tophill has found some stunning examples.
We all know that feeling of waiting for the first British asparagus to come into season, or waiting for that first peach to ripen on your tree. There's something really magical about knowing you just have a few weeks to enjoy a short-lived harvest. Well, some ornamental plants can give us exactly that same feeling. Peonies are undeniably some of the most romantic and floriferous of all the summer blooms, and each flower is so highly prized because it doesn't hang around for very long. Here on the Primrose Hall stand there are over 40 different cultivars. This is Jadwiger. It has red stems and dark foliage and a fully double beautiful pink flower. This is Shirley Temple. It has a pure white double flower that opens from a pink bud. It's a mid to late season flower, so depending where you are in the UK, expect your flowers to open anytime from the end of May. Peony veitchii subspecies woodwardii is much closer to the species form of the plant. Unlike most peonies that need full sun, this one will cope with the woodland or semi-shade position. Peonies were first cultivated in China and were particularly popular with the imperial gardens. It wasn't until the 19th century that breeding them became really popular here in the UK. There are three main types. There's herbaceous peonies, tree peonies and intersectional peonies. And I love this Binny stand because it's showcasing some beautiful single peonies, and I especially like the Blushing Princess and the beautiful Velvet Ruby. I've come to the Space Within garden to look at another classically fleeting flower, of course. It's a wisteria, a beautiful climber. Usually they're purple, but they also come in white as well. And there are two forms. They're native to China, Japan and Eastern USA, But there's the Japanese wisteria, which is Wisteria floribunda. Now that has longer flowers, and those flowers come at the same time as the leaves. And as it climbs, it twines clockwise. There's also the Chinese wisteria, which flowers a little earlier, has flowers on bare stems, so no foliage, and that one will twine anti-clockwise. But isn't this just glorious? Syringa, or lilacs, may be a traditional shrub, part of the olive family, but they're grown for their amazingly sweet scented blooms. This one is Agnes Smith, and it's a beautiful white shade. They come in whites and purples, but this looks stunning in its naturalistic, limited colour palette planting that's around it. For a lot of the year, they can look a little bit scrappy, but for those few weeks in May when you get blooms, they're absolutely glorious. Blink and you'll miss these fleeting beauties, but I'm sure we can all agree that they're well worth the wait.
The Camasias in my home garden have been absolutely wonderful this year, and these white ones are just getting going. And also, I can tell you that the bearded irises are also just hitting their stride in the garden. So I hope they are still there in their full glory, waiting for me when I get back at the end of the week from Chelsea. And tulips, of course, are another flower that all of us associate with spring and the sort of raging glory. So let's find out how the bulb veterans, Bloms, have been preparing for their first Chelsea since 2019.
I mean, I might moan a lot, but you come out here in the morning and sun's out, and it's just nice and peaceful, really. I'm Chris Blom. I'm the 5th generation of Bloms selling tulip bulbs to the retail market. In 1860, the business started over in Holland with my great-great-grandfather. It's been a family business ever since then. My nephew Chris, 6th generation. Got me grandson, 7th generation. Got my son, and I've got my wife. I forgot about her. So between us all, we've picked an awful lot of tulips. We don't sell cut flowers, we show the cut flowers so people can order them, and then we send them the bulbs. I'd say there's somewhere in the region of 170, 180 varieties. You have Purissima, then you go to the latest one, which is Texas Gold. It's a good site here because it's on top of the hill. You get the wind and the cool. Tulips like to be cool. We only put the glass on when they come into bud just to protect the flowers, because you can't show marked tulips. I mean, in an ideal world, you wouldn't have any of this glass. You just leave them in an open field. What we're looking for is, first of all, the flower head. So it's got to be fairly closed still at this stage. You don't want to pick it when it's full bloom. You want to pick it when it's nice and closed. Unblemished, and a strong stem. This would be a good Chelsea tulip. Chelsea's still 5 weeks away and I've got no tulips left in the field. The problem is we had all that warm weather and they just didn't stop growing. So now here we are, I've stripped the place bare. They're all in my coolers. But the tulips don't like being in coolers. It takes the oomph out of them. It's a bit like me, if I have too many beers or something. That takes the oomph out of me.
So this is our chiller at our nurseries, and this is where we store the tulips after they've been picked in the field, all the way until the day before Chelsea. It's cold in here, 2.5 degrees. We keep it cold in order to keep the tulips in their dormant state. It stops them from growing. Every couple of days, we have to check every single one of the 30,000 tulips in here. We check them for blemishes, and the idea is you want to get them as thirsty for water as you possibly can. So you want to take them to the brink of death, place them in water and let them drink, and that'll bring them back to life.
Well, these tulips, they've become very limp because they've had no water since picking, and they become very silk-like to the touch. This one, which is the same variety as that, had water yesterday. You can see how it's perked up. That's not watered, and that is watered.
While we are all busy at our nursery getting ready for Chelsea, we're also putting on the Tulip Festival here at Pashley Manor Gardens. Over the course of the year, we supply the garden with 48,000 tulips in the autumn. They plant them, and you can see the results here. And so many people will come and they'll say, oh, well, I didn't know a tulip could be that colour, or I didn't know a tulip could be that shape. Not everyone can plant 48,000 tulips, but you can get ideas for your own gardens. I like to think that this complements Chelsea. Chelsea, everything has to be absolutely perfect, but that's not realistic in your own garden. You're not going to have a perfect Chelsea garden. This is far more representative of what you'd have in your own garden.
The tulips are stunning, second to none.
Oh, the colours are fantastic. They're different varieties, they're different colours, they're different shapes. They're magnificent.
We've been at Chelsea since 1948. We currently have 68 gold medals. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll go for 69 this year.
Seeing the amount of work that goes into preparing a display here at Chelsea, 30,000 tulips we checked every other day. But it's worth it, because it means that we can enjoy them looking absolutely magnificent. And I can see some old favourites of mine here. There's Dordogne, that lovely peachy, pinky apricot colour that I've got in my own garden and is absolutely superb. I've also grown the new Texas Gold. It's really strong. You do need to find somewhere where it can take the blast of yellow that comes through there. But funnily enough, the flaming parrot behind it, which looks equally dramatic, works very well into the jewel garden we've got there, particularly when you're mixing it with deep, rich colours like Havran. That's another one that I absolutely love. These purples and golds and raspberry colours. And tulips do give us colour in spring in a way that no other plant does. And of course, what it means is you come here, you choose the ones you like, order the bulbs, and then, when you receive them, plant them out in your own garden in November and December. Now, the Sanctuary Garden category is back at Chelsea this year, highlighting the positive impact that plants have on our health and well-being. And Rachel Detain has been discovering how two designers are creating a sense of calm in very different ways.
It's hard to believe that we're right in the middle of the Chelsea Flower Show because it feels so calm here. So what can we take away from the Sanctuary Gardens to help us to recreate this kind of tranquility in our own garden? Lily Gomm's design takes its inspiration from nature, from the natural landscape, and in this instance, it's from Switzerland. And you really see that straight away, these boulders, really impressive, really chunky, and the water just coming down from the top and flowing into this glacial pool. Now, of course, we don't all have room for boulders in our gardens, but you can still do something to create that movement, that sound. But I think more than that, it's just about how you see nature at every turn here, and you feel like you're in the natural landscape. I'm really struck by the naturalistic planting along the other side of those boulders, just weaving in and out of the stones. And they're using cultivated plants, but in such a way that it looks like wildflowers. And I think if you look at this garden, take in all of the atmosphere that it creates, and you feel like you could be in an alpine meadow. Kate Gould's garden also takes its inspiration from nature, but here the feel is very different because instead of looking out at the landscape, one is in an urban environment. It's built up on either side, and therefore you want to feel protected and calm within the space. And so there are lots of features here that draw the eye upwards. This pergola made of metal here, this wonderful brick wall, and a lot of large plants, palms and tree ferns that sort of really fill up that space. When you come up to this level, there's a place for you to roll out your yoga mat, just surrounded by all this lush greenery. It'd be so meditative. Here on the top level, there's a swim spa. It's wonderful. But I'm also luxuriating in this wonderful, lush planting that surrounds me. It really creates an oasis of calm. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to tear myself away. There are 10 more sanctuary gardens which we'll be exploring across the week. But right now, Adam Frost is on Main Avenue, where he's meeting a Chelsea veteran.
This is the Mind Garden, designed by Andy Sturgeon, who has won 8 gold medals here at the Chelsea Flower Show. He was last here in 2019, and then he won Best Show Garden. And looking at this, it already looks good. You're drawn into this garden. It's wonderful, sort of big, chunky, curvaceous walls. But Andy straight away plays with light. I've come from dapple shade into sunlight. Little water features, just pause you for that moment. And here, the planting is full of life. It's sort of an ornamental meadow that's got baptisia, euphorbias, things like campanulas, and the species roses. So it just holds you for that moment, and then you move on. Wow. And then you're back out into the open. The sun is shining, and you smile. That ornamental meadow just works its way, and I love those Stipe gigantica, the way they play against the wall. And these bits of stone, they've all been cut individually, but you can imagine spending an afternoon with friends just chatting with the sound of that water. Surprise, surprise, Mr. Sturgeon. It's stunning.
Thank you.
The garden itself, you know, it sort of works wonderfully on lots of levels, but also you've got these lovely curvaceous walls.
The walls define all these different places within the garden, and they've got different atmospheres. So here, it's calm and protected. You're partially enclosed, you know, it feels safe. In the middle of the garden, the walls all come together. It's turmoil, it's almost chaos, it's a little bit uncomfortable.
Where did you start from with this garden?
Well, I was approached to do the Chelsea Flower Show garden during, I think, the second lockdown, and so I was acutely aware of the state of people's mental health and the importance of it with my kids, my family, and it just seemed like a really amazing opportunity and really good timing to get people talking about mental health and the importance of talking about it.
This is a real garden, you know, and from what I understand, it's going to have an afterlife.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to go and be recreated in Barrow-in-Furness in Cumbria, and it will then become a centre for therapy and all sorts of other uses. And so it will be of a great benefit to many people who need that space and that place. But the fact that it's going to continue, and these benches will go up there and people will sit on these benches and feel them.
That's a shame, really, because I was hoping for one.
Yeah, I wanted one as well, but anyway. But yeah, it's going to have this other life, and that was really one of the draws for me to come back and do a Chelsea garden.
I'm going to say this anyway, because I've known you for a long time. Good luck with the judging. You're not going to need it, boy. You're not.
Well, what's really clear here is that getting out there in our gardens is good for us.
I mean, to me, it's sort of obvious, but it's so important. Yeah. It's brilliant at every level.
It really is.
Yeah.
Me too. There's lots more to come this evening from the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset. Rachel Detain reveals 3 of the hot new plant varieties making their debut this week.
We'll be taking a closer look at the classical show garden with a modern twist.
And the royal family were out in force to support the show.
First, though, one of this year's large show gardens has been designed for the iconic children's TV show Blue Peter. Sophie Rayworth joined the designer Juliet Sargent 3 weeks ago as she embarked on her build.
So, Juliet, first time back here since
2016.
2016. What's it like?
It's nerve-wracking because this is a much bigger garden than the last one I did, and it's much more complicated. So there's quite a few things that could go wrong.
You're going to have to show me what's going on here so I can understand that. Wow, amazing. Look at that. Not only do you have the responsibility of doing a show garden here at Chelsea, you've also got the responsibility of doing it for Blue Peter.
I know.
The national treasure. So this is Blue Peter's new garden, isn't it?
It is, and it's just such a privilege. We're calling it Discover Soil because it's all about trying to excite children about soil and the importance of soil.
So what's happening here?
The roof is in 4 pieces, so this is the 3rd piece to go on the end, and eventually it'll be a big cantilevered, pointy roof sticking out.
All coming out this way?
This way. With this garden, it's all about trying to create drama and a sense of excitement. You know, I want the children to sort of really get a buzz when they come into the garden.
I think you're going to go through quite a bit of drama yourself before that happens, aren't you? Given by what's going on here. Quite a few challenges ahead. Well, you like a challenge, Juliet?
I do. I love a challenge.
7 days later, exactly 7 days, and look at this, what progress.
I know, well, I can't believe it's 7 days because I'm a bit disorientated, but I'll take your word for it.
It looks amazing. Do you know what I can't believe is that this is rock bank, which we're so used to seeing. It's always going up, it's a bank, literally, you've taken all the earth out, and the perspective's amazing.
Yeah, that's what I was really hoping for, this sort of sense of being enclosed.
What I'm fascinated by is that tree, and you still haven't told me how you're planting a tree. Are you going to tell me or not? Am I allowed to know? Is it going to be the show secret?
Yes, it's the show secret. You come down the ramp.
I love it. That isn't the tree though, is it? Even I know that.
No, it's a little bit of a trick.
A little bit of a trick
just
for the
to
kids.
give that sense that you're underground. On this wall will be the projection, which is an artistic interpretation of a journey through the soil.
And you're going to have all the sound effects of the
Yes,
soil,
and
aren't
it'll
you?
have
What it's
the
like
sound.
to be underground.
Yep.
That's lovely.
They're not in yet, but the speakers will be in the roof playing the sounds of the soil.
You've done one Chelsea garden before.
One. It was a lot smaller.
So how are you feeling though, nerves-wise, in comparison?
Okay, I mean, the planting actually is a little bit behind. I'm a bit nervous about the scale of this and whether we will get it all done.
Juliet.
Yes.
How is it going?
We're at that phase where we're itching to get on with the planting and the hard landscaping isn't quite there, so there's this sort of dance around the garden going on.
So what are the main challenges right now?
We really do need to crack on with the planting now. I am getting a little bit nervous.
And what's holding you up?
The hard landscapers. Love them as I do. They are getting in the way.
Apparently getting in the way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you that.
This paving is inspired by the cracking of clay soil. So every tile is being laid individually and sort of turned into position. So it is a lot of work.
Has it been challenging the last few days or not? Because you have had every element, haven't you?
Actually, the rain has been really good, particularly because we've got meadow plants and they love that, just that soft trickle of rain. It's really good for them. But we have got a slug in there somewhere.
Oh no!
So we've been on our hands and knees trying to find this slug because every morning a little bit more of the hosta has gone.
That is the worst problem with hostas. They are such beautiful plants, but the slugs love them, don't
I know.
they?
It was a bit of a risky thing to do hostas at Chelsea, but I like a challenge. So you enter the garden over the stepping stones.
Yeah, I'm not going through the gate. Adults go through the gate.
Channel your inner child.
Oh, it's easy, Juliet, trust me.
And then we go down into compost corner.
Okay.
Which is where children discover all about the importance of compost and looking after the soil.
Yeah, okay.
So we've got these headphones so you can listen to the life in the compost.
Right.
So you've got the scratchings of mini beasts making the compost.
Noisy, aren't they? That's amazing. Wow, I didn't know compost made that much noise.
And
we've got
now-
your green roof as well.
Oh, yes.
Which I saw going in, and now it's just grown so much over the last couple of weeks. It looks amazing.
It's about 4 times the size.
Yeah.
It's great, isn't it?
It really is, and you've completely, you know, changed the aspect on the rock bank. So what goes on under here?
This is the Risotron,
The
which is an
Risotron.
earth chamber.
Wow, OK.
So
Ooh.
in here, we get a sense of what it's like to be down in the earth. So we've got wattle and daub walls and an earthen floor. And then we're playing this video.
It's amazing. You really do feel like you're underground here, don't you?
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And
OK.
with the root on the ceiling.
Yes. Amazing.
And as we come out, we activate the rain shower.
Well, do we do that?
Yeah, it's on a sensor. And then there's this fantastic artwork by Annelie Ketterer, a German artist. She sets different soils in resin. So these are soils from all over the world, but we've also got soils from Salford.
Oh, because it's going to go on to Bridgewater. It's Bridgewater.
It's destined, it's been designed specifically for Bridgewater,
Okay.
really. And under here is the Crawley space, where children can go and dig about in the soil and really connect.
I'm coming back for that. I'm not quite dressed for it at the moment. Oh, it's fantastic. And you had all the Blue Peter presenters, I mean, past and present?
We had 11 past presenters and 2 present presenters this morning, which was a bit crazy.
Yeah, what was the reaction? How did they like it?
For me, it was fantastic. As a Blue Peter fan, it was just, to have them all in one space was just brilliant.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really is an interactive garden, but it's educational. But that's the thing about kids, isn't it? They love to learn, but they don't want to feel like they're learning. They just want to sort of get stuck in.
Exactly, we need to spark their imaginations, that's the thing.
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful garden, and good luck with the medals tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, but well done, Julia. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Some of the gardens here, like Juliet's, carry a clear message. Others, like this one, aim to solve or at least tackle a specific problem. Now, if you live in a property built on a former brownfield site, a new build home, for example, you may find the soil conditions leave you struggling to grow what you want. And the plants in the Brewer Dolphin Garden have been chosen not only to thrive in poor soil, but also to actively restore it to health. And a good example of that are the verbascums, which I know from my own garden will pop up all over the place, but they have deep roots, they're herbaceous, they have lots of underground material, and where herbaceous plants die down, the roots stay, and as they die, they provide organic matter to the soil, and the whole thing gradually improves. I say gradually, actually very quickly. Nevertheless, the origins of the site, the brown field, is very, very present. So the paths are made of reclaimed brick. You've got crushed slate, you've got concrete, and these huge walls which dominate the first appearance and clearly intimate some kind of industrial past without being too specific. The water feature is clearly not designed to be entirely domestic, but surrounded by planting. And it is important to understand the garden, to realise that the house, the viewpoint of the garden, is actually from where I'm standing and not from where the visitor first sees it. So you're seeing these walls at an angle. And also, instead of it being completely bare, and it's slightly challenging to present a bare wall as your first impression of a garden. In fact, we do have this lovely coppiced hazel blocking out and softening those hard edges. Now you come round the corner, through an archway, on the path, again, quite challenging, the grey, the crushed stone, redolent of tarmac, but certainly reminding you that this was an industrial site, to this, which is an interesting, new for me at Chelsea at any rate, which is an underground cooling system, like an ice chamber, really. So you can store dairy products, you can store jams, anything without using any energy because its insularity is kept by the soil and by straw around it. And then through into another space, and the space beyond where you can grow vegetables, beneath an enormous populous tremula, the aspen, which apparently took 3 of the biggest machines to put into position where you can stop and have a cup of tea. And I feel that this garden does what many Chelsea gardens don't do, which is it challenges you from the outset. This is not a cosy garden, it's not comfortable. But what it does do is make you think. as well as being, certainly in parts, extremely beautiful and having lots of elements that you might want to include in any garden. Now, Chelsea is the launchpad for so many of the new plants that we'll eventually want to grow in our own gardens. And every night this week, we will be revealing 3 of this year's exciting new cultivars before announcing which one has been named the RHS Plant of the Year. Here is Rachel with the first 3 contenders.
This year we're spoilt for choice in the Great Pavilion, but which of these new introductions will you be lusting after for your own garden? Well, I've been stopped in my tracks by this new rose. It's called Oxford Physic Rose, and it's named for the 400th anniversary of the Oxford Botanic Garden, which is Britain's oldest botanic garden. And it's just such a beautiful rose. You've got that lovely cupped open shape so that you can really see the stamens there in the middle, which makes it fantastic for pollinators. It's a shrub, comes up to about 1 metre in height, so it would work in a large container, but also good in a garden setting. And if you planted it fairly close to a wall, you could train it as a low-growing climber as well. It repeat flowers all the way through the summer. It's got fantastic sweet scent. I think it's going to be a winner. Annuals, which are generally tender perennials, are hugely popular with gardeners, and rightly so. But individually, the varieties don't seem to get the attention they deserve until something very special comes along. And here is one of those. It's a petunia, and it's called Funhouse Potpourri Mixed. And what is special is that the colour changes in the flowers, so that depending on the light levels and the temperature and the age of the flower too, it can be anything from this sort of really the yellow, that strong yellowy green in the middle with a darker edge, to that where it's almost red completely. And if you keep deadheading it, watering and feeding through the summer, you'll get repeat flowering right until the first frosts. If you love clematis, as I do, this is a beautiful new variety called Issy. It's this wonderful sort of ruby red colour, and then you've got these lovely contrasts of the anthers in the centre of the flower. It produces flowers for a really long period, so it's really good value in the garden. And because it's compact, it works in a container, but equally if you want to put it in the ground, it's an ideal variety for a small garden. And many people get confused about pruning, but with this variety it couldn't be simpler. You just take it down to about 15 centimetres above ground level at the end of the winter or early spring, and just look at that. It's so lovely. In fact, there are lots of beautiful new plants here at the show this year, and tomorrow I'm going to be showing you 3 more.
Now it's time to take a look at a garden that stands out on Main Avenue for being the most formal one here. This is the Perennial Garden with Love. And here's designer Richard Myers at the Laskett Gardens in Herefordshire explaining the inspiration behind his design.
A good garden design for me has to be a harmonious whole. It has to be structured, there has to be balance, proportion, scale. It has to work with the softness as well as the structure. First and foremost, it's got to be beautiful. My name is Richard Myers and I'm a garden designer. And this year, I've got my first garden at the Chelsea Flower Show. I have a style that's called classical contemporary. That's what other people describe me as. I tend not to try and analyse myself too much. It's putting structure in the garden. A structure can be, it can be a path. It can be just putting in a hedge in. A structure can be a topiary. It's having something there that can be seen all year round. I've stopped here because I love the contrast. We've got this wonderful herbaceous border, and then you've got the wonderful mown lawn and old beech hedging coming out into leaf. I love that when it's coming to leaf. And then you've got these bleached lime trees, which just give this whole garden a sense of age, of maturity. I want a garden to feel that it's been there forever, a sense of timelessness. This garden is full of vistas and alleys, really draws you up there. Just love the fact that we've got a really old statue of a stag. You've left the rest of the stag as it was, and they've just painted the antlers. It's beautiful gold, and the contrast between the yew hedge behind. I love that. It's stunning, this bit. Lovely old hedge, a lot of maturity. The way it's being clipped, it's not being clipped and too formal. It gives mass, it gives scale, but it's not hard like a wall. There's a softness to it, but also they've cut gaps through it so you can have vistas. Very important to have vistas. We're in Herefordshire at a garden called the Lascott. The gardens here were the creation of Sir Roy Strong and his late wife Julia. And then he was amazingly kind and gave the garden to Perennial, the charity who help people in horticulture. Perennial are very dear to my heart, so we're collaborating together and doing a Main Avenue garden at Chelsea Flower Show to really let everyone know that they're there. I've been a garden designer for 26 years, but I'm one of the lucky ones. It can be quite tough, and the charity Perennial, they help people in horticulture in times of need. They have a training program, and they train people up to become fully fledged proper gardeners.
It's given me the opportunity to work in horticulture and just learn from a huge variety of skilled people who've been in the industry for a long time.
It's allowed me to retrain in a career when I didn't think it would be possible, so yeah, it's fantastic.
Perennial trainees are going to come onto the garden and help with the planting during the show. There are similarities between my Chelsea garden and the garden here at the Lascott. You can see the alleys. You're being directed into a certain area. I'm directing people to the end to take in the view. So you walk in on a path and you walk past sculptures and you can walk around the whole garden taking it all in. So we've got herbaceous flowers, we've got hedges, we've got 4 Persian ironwood trees, which are very, very sculptural. There's got a pond at the end, which then feeds into a rill that runs almost the whole length of the garden, with the water disappearing in here. The water's moving just gently, it just brings a bit of lightness to the garden, a bit of fun. I'm very excited about Chelsea. It is the pinnacle of horticulture in the world, and it is showing off what we can all do. We're aiming for a gold medal, obviously. If I don't get one, I'll be sad, but really the whole point of getting gold is to get more publicity for the charity. It's a great industry, but it's tough. We have a secret at the moment. We have a quote at the end of the garden in a neon sign. It's attributed to Alfred Lord Tennyson, and it's the most lovely romantic saying I've ever come across. So apt for me as a garden designer. If I had a flower for every time I thought of you, I could walk through my garden forever.
And that is the perfect quote for Chelsea, and it's in the neon sign at the back of the garden, drawing the eye through, which gives a contemporary twist to what is otherwise a very formal, very traditional garden. So we've got this line of symmetry running right through. It starts at the pool here, the water runs through the rill the entire length of the garden, and it's straddled either side by a chamomile lawn. And when that chamomile lawn came to show, I could smell it from my garden over there, the aromatic oils released in the sun. And we've got these wonderful umbrella crataegus, hawthorns either side, beautifully clipped, and these multi-stem parottias behind me, giving the height and that sort of canopy over the garden. And then the planting is elegant, it's incredibly restrained. We've just got white foxgloves, white roses, and then a few purple lupins just coming through here and there. It really is a beautiful garden, and all the visitors to the show really love it. They love that view and they love this planting. It's very simple but very effective. So Rich, you've been designing for 26 years. First time at Chelsea. How have you found the whole experience?
It's been incredible. An incredible journey, learning so much, meeting amazing people. I've got a great team behind me. We had the most fantastic build. It's noisy. It's so noisy here. It's so dusty.
It's so different between the build and now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It is fantastic. I'm just loving it. Absolutely loving every second of it now.
Yeah, well, the garden looks great. People are really responding to it. I think, you know, they can really would love to have a garden like this with their home.
That's what I wanted I set out to do. I wanted to, well, their partner, Perennial, the charity who are sponsors, they're a gardening charity for professional gardeners to help people out. And I wanted to create a garden that people would enjoy, that could showcase what everyone can do in horticulture.
Yeah.
And I think we've got that. You know, the structural trees, the hedging, these wonderful hawthorns, and the Protea persica. But the
once
most
you've got
fun,
the structure,
Yeah.
you can have fun with the perennial planting.
Exactly. And
but you've been very restrained.
That's very hard.
Yeah.
I love my flowers. I love plants. And you know, you walk around the nursery and go, oh, that colour, oh, no. And you get very, very excited. But actually, analogy is like friends. When you get them all together, sometimes they gel, sometimes they don't. Yeah. We had a Hesperus here. It was too white. We had to take it out because it ruined the party. So,
You've got to be ruthless.
Yeah.
Now, it's Medals Day tomorrow. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very nervous because there's a lot riding on it. The better I do, the more publicity Perennial will get. So I'm really hope we do as well as we can.
Listen,
I
it's
love
a great
the garden.
garden. It's great for Perennial. Best of luck with it, Rich.
Thank you very much, Joe.
These are the All About Plants gardens, and this is the first garden category to be hosted inside the pavilion ever. And all 4 of these gardens have been designed by Chelsea first-timers, and the brief is to celebrate the positive power of plants. And each designer has chosen to interpret that brief in a very different way. Now, the first one here, designed by Charlie Hawkes, is an immersive experience. Because you enter in and immediately you're surrounded by trees. You are very clearly in a woodland, but it is an idealised woodland. It's almost a fantasy woodland. Plants are raised up, so they appear to be like a child peering through the foliage. They're enormous sarsen stones, very brilliantly incorporated into the garden. So everything seems a bit bigger than normal, a bit planting, a bit denser. And then as a gardener, you start to look and appreciate just how well Charlie has handled his plants. Because when you make your first garden, there is a temptation to chuck the kitchen sink at it, to show what you can do. And he's held back. It's restrained. It's true to the whole principle of woodland gardening, which is this subtle medley of plants. The colours are muted, but the dancing whites and then touches of blue, and yet it feels vibrant and alive. And I have to say, I think this is a triumph. Now, this is a very different garden in this group, but also completely fascinating. It's a textile garden designed by Lottie Delamain. And you can see it is arranged seemingly formally with these strips of beds looking like lengths of fabric with their different colours and subtleties gradating through. And at the base you'll find along the way these pools are filled with dye, with fabrics in it, looking remarkably like flowers opening out underneath the water. And the thing that strikes you is the range of plants that contribute to fabrics. Every single plant in this garden is either producing a dye, be it nettles or rhubarb or the more familiar plants like, say, woad, or a fibre. Every single plant on here. And so what that means, of course, is that you can make a very beautiful garden just using plants that are grown essentially for a very practical purpose. And the other little detail that I like is that the paving is meant to look like stitching on the fabrics. Now, with the Queen's Platinum Jubilee fast approaching, there is a real buzz running around the country. And here at Chelsea, Carol Klein has been finding out how growers and designers are paying tribute to Her Majesty's milestone.
As patron of the Royal Horticultural Society, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has been one of the show's most regular attendees over the past 70 years. In recognition of her support, Chelsea this year has unveiled a series of Jubilee installations around the showground. This is the entrance to the Chelsea Flower Show, and this year, in a tribute to the Queen and the Platinum Jubilee, the whole thing has become a great floral arch, decorated beautifully by Lucy Vale florists, What I love is that this whole arch is constructed not with cut flowers, but with wildflowers and garden flowers, all planted in pockets, from foxgloves to irises, loads and loads of catmint too. And afterwards, the whole thing will be taken away and replanted. As you can imagine, it must have been quite a job to construct this. So they've been working all night, every night, for days. And what a beautiful job they've made of it. There are also plants inside the Great Pavilion with a Jubilee theme. Ottershaw Cacti has a new breed of Aeonium called Jubilee. David Austin has bred a new rose for this year called Elizabeth. There's even a brand new Platinum Jubilee orchid, a beautiful regal Vanda. There are 2 royal arrivals on the new forest stand, 2 delightful little hostas. This is Royal Tiara. This is an exclusive, brand new and seen here for the first time at Chelsea. Royal Tiara is a miniature, so it's ideal if you want a royal presence in your garden, whatever size it is. The Queen, on the other hand, has real deportment. Look at those beautiful pointed leaves, splashed with gold right down their centres. Hostas are actually brilliant candidates to grow in a pot. The famous lady gardener Gertrude Jekyll used to grow lots of them in that way, but she couldn't possibly have imagined the enormous variety that hostas have today. Well, this is the florist Simon Lycett's tribute to Her Majesty the Queen and to her 70 years reign. It's actually a portrait of the Queen in silhouette and all in the most beautiful purple. It's the official colour of the Platinum Jubilee, and it's composed of all these shelves filled with pots of the Queen's favourite flower, Lily of the Valley. We used to grow it at home in a great long bed between 2 very dark houses, because this is a plant that will cope with almost total shade. Once you've got it established, it'll really go like the wind, spreading just under the ground by these lovely sort of stolons, these extended roots. They love organic matter. Get the conditions right and you'll get these perfect bells year after year after year. And long may they reign.
Thanks, Carol. Every night this week, we'll be diving into some fabulous archive from Chelsea's past to find out how plants and gardens have evolved over the last 7 decades of the Queen's reign. But for now, let's get back to the present and another very special royal visit. We were delighted to receive a visit from Her Majesty the Queen as she toured the Chelsea showground along with other members of the royal family. Sophie Rayworth joined them.
No one knew for sure until just an hour or so ago if the Queen was going to make it to Chelsea this year, but she has. She's about to arrive and people here will be delighted to see her. She's come to Chelsea more than 50 times during her 70-year reign, and given that it's her Platinum Jubilee this year, it will be all the more special. This year, the Queen is travelling in her new golf buggy. In fact, it's the first time she's been seen using it in public. Chelsea is a highlight of the Queen's calendar, and her new mode of transport means she'll still be able to enjoy meeting the garden designers and the growers she has done for so many years. John, your wonderful sculpture here, the RAF Benevolent Fund, the Queen is patron of that charity and she's just come and talked to you. What did that mean to you?
It means everything, really. I've never ever met her before. The opportunity to meet her now, brilliant at the show, and it's just lovely to see her back at Chelsea.
Well, the Queen is making swift progress. She's accompanied by the president of the Royal Horticultural Society, called Keith Weed, rather appropriately.
A very new design.
And he is explaining all the gardens and the installations to her. For Danny Clark and Tayshan Hayden-Smith, they are first-timers here at Chelsea, and the Queen has just been to see their community garden. 96 years old, a lot of people didn't think she'd be here today, and she was. You're first-timers, and here you are with the Queen looking at your garden.
Well, the fact that she's even acknowledged the garden, I think, was something that I felt really proud about. And, you know, I can say that I had a lovely chat with the Queen.
I was excited, I have to say. I didn't think I would be, but I was. It's exceeded all our expectations, Sophie.
What was that like for you?
Oh, it was good. I like meeting Her Majesty. Yeah, it's a special thing. And she always says that my gardens are the best, too.
Yes, is that what she said?
Yeah.
She said you should be best in show.
Exactly, yes.
Oh, there you go, we now know.
Well, we both got to meet the Queen, Monty, and she was lovely. Well, she was lovely to me, and like my garden too.
Well, I'm not surprised. She was lovely to me too, and she was engaged and interested, and it was a great honour.
Yeah. And you've got a shiny new thing on your lapel. What's that?
Well, that thing that you say is a medal which the RHS has given to me, the Victoria Medal of Honour, which I was both delighted and proud and very moved to receive.
Fantastic. That's for your contribution to horticulture.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's a
it's
wonderful
and I
thing.
think only 63 of us have it at any one time.
Fantastic. Well, you've got to keep it nice and shiny, remember. Well, we'll be here every evening on BBC Two with more from Chelsea, including, of course, the return of Ask Monty and Joe, in which we'll be answering your questions about garden design, plants, or anything else you've seen at the show.
So we'd love to hear from you. So head for our Twitter or Facebook pages and post your questions there using the hashtag AskMontyandJoe.
Of course, the big question tonight is which garden do you think is going to win Best Show Garden tomorrow?
Listen.
I'm writing down my prediction, OK?
Unless you write the same as me, you know you're not going to be right.
Yeah, OK, go on then, go for it. I think it's going to be... It's tough.
Well, I think there are two that stand out and maybe
I
a
think
third.
there's three that stand out. And I think it is go down to a sort of technicality. Come on, here we go. This is going to go into the blue... I'm going into the Blue Peter time capsule.
You're managing very well.
Go on, don't show me. You won it last time, but I've won it most times before that. OK, great stuff.
And what are you doing with that?
That is a Blue Peter time capsule.
Which is disintegrating in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
It's doing very well.
Juliet said that we can bury that in the garden. It'll be dug up in 25 years, and then we'll find out I'm right. Yes. Well, we'll see you back here tomorrow evening from 8 p.m. when we'll be digging up the predictions we buried today.
OK. See you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.